I am the girlfriend Axel Jean would trade his life for. Everyone says Axel Jean could live without his life but not without me. Only I know the truth. While making a grand, passionate marriage proposal to me. On one side he nearly lost his life drunk driving for a young and delicate girl. I pretended to know nothing. Quietly preparing for the wedding. Designing the invitations. Notify friends and family. Just replace the groom's name. With his arch-nemesis. Right when he narrowly escaped death and was pouring his heart out to Joyan. I stood at the hospital room door, took out my phone and replied to Finmu. Alright, as you suggested, the wedding will be moved up by a month. Axel Jean has cherished and spoiled me for 10 years. On my 26th birthday he reserved all the roses in the city, covering every corner of the courtyard. The banquet hall displayed a 7-tier cake he had made with his own hands. On each layer he had carefully written, "Zoe, will you marry me?" Surrounded by countless media, he walked through a sea of flowers, knelt on one knee and gazed at me with deep affection in his eyes. "Zoe, will you marry me? I swear in this lifetime I will never let you lose." With slightly reddened eyes I nodded gently. Tears fell from his eyes in a moment of overwhelming emotion, his cool fingertips trembling as he slipped the engagement ring he had designed himself onto my finger. The untimely ring of a phone call interrupted the moment. He turned slightly to answer, his fingers still trembling faintly. That day he reluctantly and urgently flew to South City. The challenging project that had been troubling him for so long was finally successfully secured by him. However, the other party insisted that the contract must be signed tonight. This flight took him directly to the most luxurious couples restaurant in South City. The girl coquettishly teased him, inadvertently revealing the thin clothing beneath her trench coat. After barely eating a few bites, Axel Jean couldn't wait any longer and carried her to the themed couples suite on the top floor. In the evening, I dragged my somewhat exhausted body to see off the guests from the birthday party. I buried myself in designing the wedding invitations for 2 months. Since I hadn't stayed up late in a long time, when the clock hands pointed past 11, I couldn't help but collapse onto the paper and fall into a deep sleep. I was startled awake by continuous vibrations. Text messages as if they were free flooded into my phone like snowflakes. Suppressing the drum-like pounding of my heart, I thought something had happened to Axel Jean. What met the eyes were a series of bold and explicit photos, interwoven with the narration of how the two met and fell in love. And passionate yet shy audio recordings. Axel Jean, on the very day he put the engagement ring on my finger, abandoned me on my birthday. Rushing to the other end of the city, tirelessly coaxing his little girl until he was thoroughly satisfied. She was a dazzlingly beautiful 19-year-old girl, young and tender, carrying dreams of stardom in her heart. Axel Jean mentioned it to me more than once. He said he had met a young girl who lived in hardship but strived to grow toward the light, and he intended to support her. How he upheld justice and drove away Joy-Ann's persistent ex-boyfriend for her. And how he took that naive, innocent young girl under his wing, carefully guiding her. Even recently he asked me with a deep frown. I introduced Joy-Ann to a handsome and wealthy boyfriend. But she absolutely refused to agree. "You're both girls and I want to know, is there any way my friend can win her over?" I never thought much of it and even offered advice for his friend. No girl can resist someone who is deeply devoted. Give her everything she wants, spoil her, pamper her and never let her get hurt. These heartfelt words meant to ease his worries turned into knives stabbing me in the back. Joy-Ann said that if she wanted the stars, Axel Jean would even pluck the moon for her. That headache-inducing tough project that kept him up at night turned out to be Joy-Ann. All those days Axel Jean lied to me about being on a business trip in the southern city. He was actually pursuing her with relentless effort. Even her perfectly matched ex-boyfriend was forced to break up with her by Axel Jean, who ruthlessly used $1 million check to drive them apart. The very second Joy-Ann agreed to date him, he couldn't contain his excitement and splurged on a private jet. Throwing me an excuse I couldn't refuse, he couldn't wait to fly to the southern city. Crushing the girl he had longed for into his embrace, he relentlessly and fiercely possessed her. I suppressed the pain spreading through my chest, my fingertips trembling as I turn off the recording that shattered both body and soul. The engagement ring on my ring finger glints mockingly under the light. I take it off and hurl it into the trash, letting the tears fall helplessly in large drops. In the end I still ended up walking the same path as my mother. She warned me the wise don't fall in love. I didn't listen, now I reap what I sowed. The phone vibrates, another unknown number intrudes. The message is brief and clear. I'm Fin Mu, how about considering a different groom? Fin Mu, Axel Jin's arch rival. Over the years he has always interfered with whatever Axel Jin wanted. My chest still ached unbearably. Thinking of Axel Jin's betrayal, I agreed to Fin Mu's request. Fin Mu proposed again. Then let's meet tomorrow evening at Yunding Coffee to talk. All right. That night, I crossed out Axel Jin's name on the invitation and unfolded a new sheet of paper, tears smudging tiny blossoms of moisture over the groom's name. The next evening I collapsed at the villa's entrance. It was Fin Mu who took me covered in blood to the hospital. That night the doctor fought tirelessly to snatch me from the grasp of death. Axel Jin set off a night of dazzling fireworks in South City for Joyin. The brilliant fireworks lit up the starry night sky. They also illuminated the two figures passionately kissing in the backseat of the Rolls-Royce. I woke up at noon the next day. Stimulant-induced abortion and diagnosed with aplastic anemia. The doctor said, under good conditions I had about 4 to 5 years left to live. I clenched my phone, inside which lay the fresh experience Joyin had brought to Axel Jin under the dazzling fireworks last night. Fin Mu snatched the phone away. It's not worth getting upset over that horny mutt, Axel Jin. What you need to do now is focus on recovering and actively cooperate with the treatment. He stood against the light, making it impossible to discern the emotions in his eyes. Being with me is the best revenge against Axel Jin. Axel Jin called me on video chat, anxiously asking why I was in the hospital. I brushed it off by saying I had a cold and fever. He wasn't reassured and insisted on returning to Beijing. Even if it meant stalling the rapidly progressing project. Joyin didn't let him have his way. From being unable to stop him from leaving to finally proposing a breakup. She went to the bar alone and publicly invited her ex-boyfriend to reconcile. Without even glancing at Axel Jin, who followed behind her with eyes burning red. Axel Jin was already completely drunk when Joyin left with her ex-boyfriend. Ignoring his childhood friend's attempts to stop him, he grabbed the racing car keys his friend had found for him and gave chase. One stomp on the accelerator and he nearly met the king of hell. Joyin proudly boasted to me about it. Zoe Gu, your decade-long relationship couldn't withstand my single breakup statement. He was willing to risk his life for me. The moment Axel Jin regained consciousness, his first action was to instruct his assistant to spend whatever it took to keep the incident in Nanjing completely under wraps. Yet I still went to the hospital. I want to see with my own eyes just how passionately he loves Joyin. In the hospital room, Axel Jin, who had narrowly escaped death in the ICU, pulled the girl in front of him into his arms and kissed her domineeringly. After a long while he finally spoke in a hoarse voice. Joyin, I'll give you everything you want except the title. A villa, money, dreams, jewelry, even children, all can be yours. You'll have what Zoe has and I'll fulfill what Zoe doesn't have. Through the visitation glass, I gazed into those affectionate eyes, deep enough to drown a person. Take out the phone to reply to Fin Mu. All right, as you wish, the wedding will be held a month earlier. Then turn around. At the same time, take Axel Jin's warning to heart. Little thing, if you dare mention breaking up again, I'll chain you to the bed and punish you until you're crying for mercy. You're not leaving me in this lifetime. The hospital corridor is very long. So long that by the time I reached the exit, the heart that had loved for 10 years was left frozen at the end of the corridor. The phone vibrates and a photo bursts into view. In the photo the man smiles at the corners of his lips, gazing at the girl behind the camera. The love in his eyes shines as brilliantly as a galaxy. As if it were that year when they were 16. Thick billowing smoke, a wrecked race car. The youth with blood-stained cheeks, his eyes brimming with love, like a raging fire that trapped me within. 20-year-old Axel Jin declared domineeringly, Zoe, I've won. In this lifetime you're destined to be mine. The phone vibrated again. Through the words I could clearly sense the triumph in Joy-An's eyes. You heard what was said in the hospital room. I'll leave you the intangible thing called status. But from now on his love belongs to me. I coldly lowered my gaze and replied. I find trash that others have used dirty. If you treasure it then hold on tight and don't let go. Axel Jin's message popped in at an inopportune moment. Wife, I miss you. The place in my heart where you belong has lost the strength to beat after not seeing you for days. Wait for me, there are still some minor issues I need to deal with for a few days. I'll make it up to you properly when I get back. I ignored it. I directly took a screenshot of this message and forwarded it to the so-called troublemaker he mentioned. I didn't go home, instead I went straight to Grandpa's place. My grandfather only learned of my existence when I was 16 years old. Because my father, while claiming to be an orphan with my mother, brought his secretary back to his hometown and held a wedding banquet. Later, when I was with Axel Jean, my father kept showing up to cause trouble, and somehow my grandfather found out. Grandfather came all the way from the countryside to the city. After hearing the whole story from me, she slapped my father so hard that he signed the disownment papers. Then, as I wished, she removed me from the family registry. She also made a public statement in the media, declaring that the Gu family had wronged us, mother and daughter, and that I had severed all ties with them, henceforth free from any filial obligations. Finally, the old man slapped my father again, this time even harder, and cut off all father-son relations with him. Afterwards, he tried his best to make up for all the emotional neglect of those years by showering me with affection. Over these years, Axel Jean often accompanied me to visit Grandpa, and Grandpa liked him very much. The aunt who took care of Grandpa had tears welling up in her eyes the moment she saw me. "Miss Gu, you finally come. The old master is fading fast. He kept asking me to hide it from you and President Jean, clutching your photo and secretly crying several times by himself. He's still conscious now, hurry in and see him." Suppressing the stinging in my eyes, I quickly walked into the bedroom. The elderly man lay on the bed, his mouth emitting labored breaths. Tears streamed down my face as I held his withered hand. The moment he saw me, he suddenly burst into childlike, aggrieved sobs. Mumbling incoherently, he cried, "My girl is back, don't cry, my girl isn't sad." He clutched my hand desperately. "Call Axel, I must entrust you to him. Grandpa is worried." His entire body began to convulse with violent coughs. "Quick. Call, cough, cough, cough." In a panic, I fumbled for my phone. The call was dialed again and again, only to be hung up each time over and over. But Axel Jean never answered on the other end. But I received a reply from Joyen instead. "Zoe, I'm really sorry. It was a critical moment at that time, and Mr. Jean didn't check who was calling before hanging up. Now he's fallen asleep again from exhaustion and I can't bear to wake him. I've set my phone to silent so there's no need to keep trying to call. I'll delete the communication records too." Finally, with his eyes wide open, Grandpa passed away, the photo tightly clutched in his hand, drifting alone to the ground. I threw myself onto him, weeping uncontrollably. In this world there was no longer a single person who truly loved me. Fin Mu arrived the next day and helped me with the funeral arrangements for Grandpa. He even attended the burial as the grandson-in-law. Meanwhile, Joyen kept sending me messages during these days. Just guess what? Do you know how wild Mr. Jean and I have been these days? You'd never guess, his favorite is mango-flavored ultra-thin. Last night he nearly wore me out. He said he wants me to have a baby for him as soon as possible. He even had his assistant send me a bunch of baby clothes. Until she sent me photos of those clothes. I angrily dug my nails deep into my palms. Those were the baby clothes I had sewn for the child I lost. 3 years ago, Axel Jean and I had a child together. Although he had secretly tampered with things, I still accepted this unexpected little life. During that time, I stitched each piece of baby's intimate clothing with needle and thread, full of anticipation. Later, Axel Jean, due to fatigue driving, accidentally collided with a truck. Both he and I were injured and we lost the baby. He blamed himself for it for a very, very long time. Afraid that I would be heartbroken, he took those little clothes to store at his company. I once saw him holding those tiny garments, weeping uncontrollably. Now he actually gave them to Joyen. How dare he? Axel Jean came back in the middle of the night on a flight 1 later than mine. When his strong, firm arms restrained me, I reflexively rushed to the bathroom to vomit. He followed closely with concern, gently patting my back, unable to hide his surprise as he asked, "Zoe, are you pregnant?" From the day we set the wedding date, Axel Jean had firmly refused to take any precautions. Holding a heart full of eager anticipation, he had no idea how many times he had whispered it to me. He couldn't wait to experience the joy of becoming a father. With reddened eyes, I looked up and met his affectionate, joyful gaze. I nodded gently. Since he loves to daydream so much, let him indulge in his fantasies. Is he worthy of having children with him? Both of his children were killed by his own hands. Overwhelmed with excitement, Axel Jean held me and spun around wildly. It wasn't until I struggled free that he finally put me down gently. Zoe, I'll make it the happiest baby in the world. I suppressed the disgust in my heart. The happiest baby? Happy enough to compete with his illegitimate child for their father's love and family fortune in the future? He really has the nerve to say that. My chest felt as if stuffed with cotton, unable to swallow or spit it out. Finally, I pretended to feel dizzy and mustered all my strength to throw myself into his arms. Ouch, he gasped in pain, too preoccupied to check his aching chest as he nervously scooped me up and gently laid me on the bed. Then he opened the drawer and quickly popped a dark plum-flavored candy into my mouth. He thought I was having a hypoglycemic episode and was extremely nervous. I softly exhaled a sigh of relief. As he focused intently on checking my complexion, I raised my hand to brush aside the stray hair covering the corner of his eye. There was a distinct scar there now. How did this happen here? Axel Jean turned pale with shock. He managed only a single word before falling completely silent. I lowered my hand in utter disappointment, as if I had lost all interest in a once-cherished treasure. Axel Jean knows that what I love most are his eyes. A pair of peach blossom eyes. When he smiles, they carry a rebellious and roguish charm. But when he looks at someone, they're only tender for me. I often find myself drowning in the whirlpool of affection in his eyes. Every time I'm moved by passion, I love to climb onto him and kiss the slightly upturned corners of his eyes. At this thought, the color drained from Axel Jean's face inch by inch. He panicked and explained, I planned to rush back on your birthday to give you a surprise. I was driving too fast and accidentally rear-ended someone, scraping the corner of my eye. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Trust me, I'll make this scar disappear forever. He stared at me intently, then finally forced out through gritted teeth. Zoe, you won't stop loving me because of this scar, right? I lowered my eyes and remained silent. He abruptly stood up, pulling out his phone to inquire about a plastic surgeon's number. I watched him fidget like an ant on a hot pan, feeling utterly indifferent inside. If he truly cared so much, how could he have risked his life for another woman? How could he have betrayed our love, and in the very way I despised the most? I casually mentioned the baby clothes I had sewn before. He instantly tensed up like a tightly drawn string, turning his head stiffly, his words stumbling. At the company. I'll bring them back tomorrow. After work. Using my recent poor health as an excuse, I insisted on sleeping in separate rooms. He actively sought consultations for scar removal surgery while investing heavily to make Joy a star in the entertainment industry. Within just 1 week, the rising star Joy Ann's trending topics repeatedly claimed the top spot in rankings. Her public persona was consistently that of an innocent and pure jade-like beauty. Prime resources, TV dramas, reality shows, and advertisements all extended olive branches to her. Gossip among insiders. Just which mysterious big shot has the iron fist to spare no expense in elevating a newcomer to such heights in such a short time? This newcomer named Joy and is truly blessed with good fortune. I tossed those little clothes into the brazier. Blessed with good fortune, you say? I actually hope she can climb higher so she'll fall harder. Because I'm not the kind of person who likes to suffer losses. Axel Jean casually mentioned it to me when he got home. The Mu family suddenly stopped their malicious interference with the company a few days ago. From now on, he can focus all his energy on the company's development. Starting next month, he wants to replace all the company's product endorsements with Joy. He laid it all out, analyzing each point for me. Joy has a great image and high popularity. The company needs to inject such fresh blood, and I want to give more opportunities to hardworking young people like this. I interrupted what he was about to say next. What if I disagree? Would you change your mind for me? He was momentarily stunned, trying to detect any emotion other than calmness through my expression. I chuckled and pressed further. The mysterious big shot they say is behind Joy Ann's rise to fame. Could that be you? Axel Jin's expression darkened instantly. It was the first time he'd gotten angry with me. Zoe, why are you like those people, always eager to tarnish her reputation? Joy made it on her own efforts. I am a businessman. I won't waste money building a false reputation for someone. Yes, she made it through her own efforts. She just worked hard to serve you well, and this immense fortune came her way. Looking at his face, dark and cold with anger, I immediately felt wronged, my eyes reddening. Are you angry with me because of her? Since you're so protective of her, why don't I just give her the position of Mrs. Jean? I'll move out tomorrow to make room for her in advance. I stood up, trying to shake off his tightly gripped wrist, only to meet his bloodshot eyes. Axel Jean can't stand hearing me say such harsh words. Then I'll make sure to say them to him. Furious, he laughed bitterly and pulled me into his arms, leaving me no room for resistance. A scorching kiss mixed with the taste of blood filled my mouth. That disgusting feeling of repulsion is driving me crazy. It wasn't until he felt the scalding tears that he gasped and pulled me tightly into his arms. Darling, don't be jealous for no reason. She's just a student I pitied and decided to support. I won't allow you to say such things again or I'll go mad. I broke free from him and said earnestly, you said that as long as I wanted you could give me the entire company. Now, I only have one request. I don't agree with Joy in being the company's spokesperson. After a long silence, Axel Jean asked in return, Zoe, why? I want to know the reason. I looked at him and said word by word, because I hate her. Is that reason enough? Axel Jean left, his icy warning still echoing in my ears, devoid of any warmth. Zoe, I can indulge you in everything else, but you shouldn't interfere too much with company matters. I've already promised the company's endorsement to Joyanne. I won't let your prejudice make me speak ill of her. Not until the car downstairs started did I dial that frequently contacted number in my call log. Both parties quickly reached a consensus. 4 years ago, Axel Jean's company faced a crisis. I used the trust fund my mother had set aside for me to help him through the crisis. Once everything settled, Axel Jean transferred half of the company's shares to my name. After deciding to leave him, I began quietly selling the shares, but we couldn't agree on a price. Until today, when I accepted the final offer they proposed, but with one additional condition. I will always vote against any products endorsed by Joyanne's company. I won't allow the company revived with my mother's inheritance to become Joyanne's stepping stone to success. The terms were agreed upon at 9 o'clock, and the contract was signed at 9:15. The other party raced against time, fearing that the deal might fall through due to unforeseen changes. From today onwards, I have completely severed the only remaining tie with Axel Jean. The next day, Joyanne updated a post on her social media, visible only to me. Thank you for the generous gift. He said it perfectly matches my temperament. It was that recently hyped auction item, Eternal Love. It is said to be the final masterpiece of a French jewelry master, created to commemorate his undying love for his late wife. If that jewelry master knew that the piece he made to honor his wife ended up in the hands of a mistress, he might be so furious he'd flip his coffin lid. To let him rest in peace. I simply took a screenshot of that dazzling diamond necklace. I also posted a moment on my social media. What a pity I missed it. An hour later, that diamond necklace was delivered to me by Axel Jean's assistant. The excuse the assistant gave was, Mr. Jean paid a hefty price to make the other party reluctantly part with it. He truly cares about you. I knew very well that Axel Jean must have promised Joy in something of equivalent value. But how could I let her have it easy? So, I posted pictures of the expensive suburban villa on my social media again. No additional words were needed. Those who understand will naturally understand. Fortunately, Axel Jean got the hint. The red property deed bearing my name was proudly shared on my social media 3 hours later. The caption read, I really don't need it, but he insisted on giving it to me. Only Joyanne can see this. Joyanne's voice message came 5 minutes later. She was screaming hysterically. What nonsense about the one not being loved being the third party. He just feels guilty toward you. Do you know how much he adores my body? Last night I lost count of how many times I made him happy. You know he bought me. I only replied with one sentence. If I post these voice messages online, do you think you'd be universally condemned and forced to quit the internet? The other party immediately backed down. I roughly calculated the value of the things she just mentioned and then gave her a 50% discount. This should be all the liquid funds she can come up with. Then send her the amount. And tell her that if my mood doesn't improve before dark, these recordings will be in the hands of major media outlets by tomorrow. As it turns out, Joyanne is just as savvy as Axel Jean. Looking at the substantial amount newly added to my phone, marked as a gift, I felt a wave of satisfaction. In high spirits, I went to bed early. Just when someone had to come and ruin this rare good mood. I was woken up in the middle of the night by Axel Jean, who had clearly had too much to drink. His breath reeked of alcohol as he showered me with hot, wet kisses. I struggled to break free, but he pinned me down relentlessly. He whispered soothingly, "Honey, I'll be very gentle, I won't disturb the baby. Lately your distance has been making me anxious." He lowered his head and kissed me. Alright, that damn familiar feeling of disgust is back again. I grabbed the water glass from the nightstand and smashed it onto his head with a loud clang. No blood, but he passed out. I kicked him off the bed, walked into the bathroom to brush my teeth again, then pulled out a wet wipe and scrubbed my neck furiously until it turned red and stung. Finally, I gave him one last hard kick before climbing into bed to sleep. In the morning, Axel Jean was woken up by me splashing a basin of cold water on him. Before he could say a word, I took the initiative and coldly questioned him. "Last night when you were drunk and holding me, you called out Joy-Ann's name. Axel Jean, don't tell me again that there's nothing between you two. Let's part ways amicably." He panicked, fighting through dizziness to stop me as I turned to leave. But he tripped over the foot of the bed and fell hard to the ground. Ignoring the pain, Axel Jean grabbed my wrist tightly and roared. "Zoe, I swear there's really nothing between me and Joy, and otherwise, may I die a horrible death. These past few days, we've been discussing plans regarding her endorsement. Plus, I drank a lot yesterday and misspoke in the moment. You can't sentence me to death over one unintentional mistake. It's not fair. I will never let you go." I turned around, my eyes red as I said word by word, "Axel Jean, those who betray true hearts must swallow 10,000 needles. I'll only believe you this once." After that day, Axel Jean stayed at home for 2 days, being the perfect 24/7 boyfriend, discussing wedding arrangement details with me. The wedding, originally scheduled for 2 months later, was abruptly moved up by over a month by him, coincidentally clashing with my wedding date. So, I demanded to hold the wedding in the southern city and he agreed. I insisted on using his most hated flowers at the wedding and he complied. And all the subsequent unreasonable demands I made, he nodded to each one. He said as long as I was happy, that was all that mattered. On the 3rd day, Axel Jean was urgently called away by a phone call. I only found out from the trending searches that Joy-Ann had missed a step on the set and sprained her ankle. And today happened to be the 11th anniversary of my relationship with Axel Jean. Joy-Ann mockingly sent a provocation, saying she would give me a memorable anniversary unlike any other. She would do everything in her power to keep Axel Jean by her side. I watched her overly confident certainty. Decided to take the path of the villain, leaving no road for the villain to walk. Axel Jean, who had spent the entire day with Joy-Ann, was feeling a bit anxious. Today was his and Zoe's anniversary. Seeing the sky gradually darken, he didn't want to waste any more time at Joy-Ann's place. But Joy-Ann clung to him like a needy kitten, her nose red from crying, gazing at him with such pitiful reluctance. His heart softened and he kept delaying. Finally, he steeled himself and spoke up. "Joy, you should rest well. I have something important to attend to today, but I'll come to accompany you tomorrow." A trace of resentment flashed in Joy-Ann's eyes as she threw herself into Axel Jean's arms, looking pitiful with tears in her eyes, a sight that tugged at the heartstrings. Just as he was about to soften, Axel Jean's phone vibrated twice. He had a feeling it must be Zoe. He didn't stop until he opened that image and scrutinized it carefully twice. Only then did he dare confirm that the little temptress in black sexy lingerie, with lips like blazing fire, was Zoe. He slowly adjusted his breathing, his gaze falling on the words, "Master, please spoil me." Those 5 short words instantly set his blood boiling. By the time he regained his senses, he had already floored the accelerator. Vaguely remembering, it seemed just moments ago, he had forcibly pried open Joy-Ann's tightly clinging hands. The door lock turned at the expected time, and I suppressed the sneer at the corner of my lips. The next second I was pinned harshly against the wall by Axel Jean. The vegetables and fruits at my feet were scattered all over the ground. Axel Jean has always been flamboyant. Except for their anniversary every year. He would cancel all his work, cook in person, and every dish was my favorite. Then feed me until I'm completely exhausted, leaving me without a single ounce of strength. This time I didn't resist. Instead I wrapped my arms around his neck just like I always did. But just as my lips were about to touch the corner of his eye, I suddenly pushed him away. Sorry, but that scar at the corner of your eye kills any interest I might have had. I know exactly how to hurt him the most, making only me suffer is too unfair. Axel Jean felt as if a basin of icy water had been poured over his head. The flames that were about to consume him were instantly extinguished. He clenched his jaw tightly, a taste of blood rising in his mouth when he saw the disgust in my eyes. It must have been his imagination, his Zoe would never treat him this way. Not until the sound of the master bedroom door locking echoed did the living room fall so silent that he could almost hear only his own heartbeat. Only then did it dawn on him, Zoe hadn't hugged him on her own initiative in a long time. All because of one more scar. What if she found out about Joy-Ann's existence? No, in this lifetime he would never let Zoe know about his affair with Joy-Ann, he couldn't afford to gamble with that. Axel Jean sat on the balcony all night, surrounded by scattered cigarette butts and empty liquor bottles littering the floor. As dawn broke he rose wearily and cleaned up the mess. He had promised to make this scar disappear forever. It's just that recently he's been held up by the matter concerning Joy-Ann. As long as this scar is removed he and Zoe can go back to how they were before. With this thought he seemed to regain his motivation, bending down to pick up the vegetables from the floor and walking into the kitchen. Before long, a table was set with 6 dishes and a soup, all aromatic and appetizing. Axel Jean then quietly walked to the door of the master bedroom. I was startled awake by a knock at the door. As I got up I felt a dull ache in my lower abdomen and opened the door with a pale face. Go buy me a pack of sanitary pads. We're out at home. I made your favorite dish. Both spoke at the same time. Axel Jean was so shocked that he forgot to respond, and after a long pause he finally asked in a hoarse voice. You're not pregnant? I calmly replied, my period was late so I thought I was pregnant. What, are you disappointed? Axel Jean's eyes darkened slightly, then he gradually relaxed his furrowed brow and comforted me. Don't be disappointed, we'll have children in the future. You go lie down on the bed, I'll go buy it and be back soon. By the time Axel Jean returned my pain had already eased, but he still insisted on brewing brown sugar water and made me drink it. Then he repeatedly rubbed his palms warm to heat my abdomen. The phone rang abruptly. He glanced at the caller ID and without hesitation immediately silenced it. The next second Joy-Ann's manager called back again. Axel Jean hesitated for a few seconds before hanging up again, repeating the action over and over. He got up somewhat irritably, told me to rest well, said there was something important at the company that needed handling, then turned to leave. Wait a minute, I called out to him. Pulling out the wedding invitation for me and Finmu from under the pillow, I handed it to him. Take a look at the design and see if there's anything that needs to be changed. His phone was still vibrating urgently in his palm. Axel Jean gave it a quick glance, muttered a perfunctory "it's fine," and hurried off. If only he had looked a little longer he would have noticed. The groom's name had long been replaced by that of his sworn enemy. Yet his heart was not here. It had already drifted away to Joy-Ann. As the sound of the door closing echoed, I called for housekeeping to remove every trace of me from this home. Tuck that invitation back under the pillow. Then without hesitation pick up the suitcase and leave. Before boarding the plane to South City, the scandal between Axel Jean and Joy-Ann had already caused a huge uproar. Axel Jean stormed into Joy-Ann's dinner party and beat a wealthy businessman, who was trying to take advantage of her, half to death. And he issued a stern warning. Anyone who dares to target Joy-Ann in the future will face the same fate. Then he shielded the disheveled Joy-Ann in his arms, picked her up and quickly left the scene. The entire incident was coincidentally captured by someone with ulterior motives, even though he had silenced everyone present. When he returned to the company and continued using his connections to suppress the wealthy businessman, the footage was still leaked online by someone. Axel Jean was completely panicked. I was just 10 minutes away from boarding when I received Axel Jean's call. He immediately started explaining, "Zoe, those paparazzi are just grasping at straws." I hung up the phone directly and then turned it off. When we arrived in the southern part of the city, I pulled out another phone from my bag. A call came in immediately. A magnetic and pleasant voice came through the receiver. "Axel Jean is frantically searching for you everywhere. I just had someone pass him a message, telling him you're currently setting up the wedding venue in South City. Your father's matter has been wrapped up. He might come looking for you soon, so you'd better be mentally prepared." I nodded in response. "All right, let's not meet for now. I don't want to arouse Axel Jin's suspicion. I'm planning to give him a surprise. As for Gu Jingsheng, hold him off for me first. Once I've finished setting up the wedding venue, I'll have a good catch-up with him. The other party chuckled lightly, exuding a lazy nonchalance. Zoe, after 11 years of feelings, you wouldn't even give him a decent breakup. Quite ruthless, but I like it. Don't worry, I'll handle Gu Jingsheng for you. After hanging up the phone, I looked at the scene before me. The framework had already been set up according to my instructions. Just need to arrange the details. Actually, I've already given Axel Jin a decent breakup, he just didn't see it. Axel Jin has a phone he's used for 10 years. It was our first anniversary, the first gift I gave him with money I earned from my part-time job. The SIM card inside was personally chosen by me, with the last 4 digits being 1314. He always carried it with him, reluctant to throw it away even when it was unbearably slow, even spending money every year to maintain it carefully. Until the last street race, when the phone was completely destroyed, he didn't bother to recover that phone number symbolizing forever, probably afraid his little girl would get jealous. So he never saw the breakup message I sent him today. Axel Jin came after me 2 days later. It took some effort for him to completely suppress this trending topic. The cheater's uniform explanation is nothing but an excuse to cover up the real truth. I interrupted him. Axel Jin, I don't want to hear any more of your excuses. After saying that, I ignored him and continued to focus on arranging the tasks at hand. Now all that's left is to plant the large empty spaces on both sides of the red carpet with the bellflowers that Axel Jin hates the most, and it's basically done. Fin Mu truly lives up to being Axel Jin's arch-nemesis. What Axel Jin despises is precisely what he loves. Faced with my indifference, Axel Jin grew somewhat irritated. He blocked my path, his tone laced with anger. Zoe, the fact that you're still meticulously arranging the wedding venue shows you're not planning to let go of this relationship easily. Joy has no one to rely on. If I don't protect her from behind, she'll be devoured by that corrupting environment without a trace left. Can you bear to leave a young girl like her all alone? I slammed the iron shovel in my hand hard onto his foot, causing him to immediately grimace in pain. Of course I can bear it. Did I force her to become a celebrity? Everyone knows it's a big divat. She was just a penniless, powerless and backgroundless orphan girl who insisted on jumping into it. If she has that kind of courage, it means she has the ability to protect herself. I paused for a moment, looking into his eyes with a meaningful retort. Isn't that right? Axel Jin irritably rubbed his temples. Zoe, I'm the CEO of the Jin Corporation. What if, during future social engagements, I end up talking a few more words with some woman? Are you going to be unreasonable like this too? I don't always have the patience to coax you like this. I scoffed. Axel Jin, I've never forced anything when it comes to feelings. It's you who refuses to let go. I am officially notifying you now that we're over. Take care and I won't see you out. Axel Jin left in a huff, feeling as if a stone was lodged in his heart, overwhelmed by an indescribable frustration. He thought about the phone call he had just received. Joy Ann's endorsement proposal had been completely rejected. Without his knowledge, the company had gained an additional shareholder. Zoe actually went behind his back and secretly sold the shares he had gifted her. How could she be so willful to this extent? He didn't return home. Instead, he was directly called by Jing Nan to a private room for drinks. It wasn't until he was nearly drunk that Jing Nan patted him on the shoulder, offering some advice with a tone of frustration at his lack of self-improvement. I think you've spoiled Zoe. Someone with your wealth and status always has a few admirers around. As long as things don't get too ugly, most wives would turn a blind eye. She can throw tantrums and threaten to break up with you, yet still personally handle every detail of the wedding arrangements. It's obvious she's got you wrapped around her finger. She's 26 now, not some fresh-faced girl who's easily impressed. If she leaves you, she won't find anyone better. You should let her sweat a little, make her panic for a change. Axel Jin slowly turned the thought over in his mind, evaluating the relationship for the first time with a businessman's eye. Jing Nan's words weren't without reason. 11 years of feelings coupled with the status of Mrs. Jin aren't something one can simply walk away from. Perhaps he had been too indulgent with Zoe. He took out his phone and sent Zoe a message. Let's both take some time to cool off. When the wedding date approaches, I'll come to pick you up. As long as you wish, the position of Mrs. Jin will always be yours. Fueled by alcohol, he called Joy-in over and introduced them one by one. After shyly greeting everyone, Joy-in was suddenly pulled into Axel Jin's embrace. A scorching kiss followed immediately. The crowd erupted into wild whistles, making it even livelier than the birthday celebration. Everyone compliments Mr. Jin, saying he's truly blessed. Young and beautiful, the little sister-in-law is much more obedient and sensible compared to Zoe. As the gathering was about to end, Jingnan cornered Joy-in in the restroom. The job's done for you. Axel Jin is dead drunk and won't wake up all night. I'll be waiting for you at the usual spot tonight. Joy-in frowned and warned, tonight is the last time. If Axel finds out about us, I swear I won't let you off even if I die. Jingnan smirked coldly. What? Trying to burn the bridge after crossing the river. Don't forget it was you who begged me to connect you with Axel Jin for funding. And it was me who found you a fake boyfriend to provoke that fool Axel Jin. You didn't have this chaste and virtuous act when you were seducing us to satisfy you. He gripped Joy-in's chin so tightly that she let out a pained groan. You're nothing but a worn-out whore. Who are you trying to play the saint with? He yanked Joy-in's hair, forcing her to kneel on the ground and lightly patted her cheek. You know what to do. Otherwise I'll let Axel Jin know what kind of person you really are. When Axel Jin sobered up from his hangover, Joy-in's eyes were already swollen from crying. She spoke with a thick nasal voice full of grievance. You and Sister Zoe are getting married in a week, right? And also, you gave the endorsement deal you promised me to someone else. Brother Axel, are you tired of me? Looking at the continuous stream of congratulatory messages vibrating on his phone, Axel Jin finally realized. He had previously told Joy-in his phone password and allowed her to check it freely. Looking at her swollen red eyes and her abandoned appearance made his heart ache slightly. Compared to Zoe, Joy-in seemed to love him more than he had imagined. Heartbroken, he pulled her into his arms and coaxed her gently. I've bought you a villa at Golden Moon Bay. I've also transferred an apartment to your name overseas. If you'd like, I can accompany you for a few days abroad to enjoy ourselves. There happens to be an auction there, and whatever you like I'll buy it for you. She's been with me for 11 years. I'll attend the wedding as scheduled in a week. I'm sorry about the endorsement issue. There were some internal problems at the company. I know you're more understanding than her and wouldn't want to put me in a difficult position. With that said, Joy-in could only nestle in his arms and nod obediently. True to his promise, Axel Jin turned off his phone and spent 3 carefree days with Joy-in, even splurging millions to acquire rare collectibles for her during that time. This time he made no attempt to conceal anything, deliberately broadcasting their every move back to the country, even making it into trending news. However, he protected Joy-in very well. Those photos only showed angles like being carried sideways into the apartment or a tilted head for a kiss. He needed Zoe to know that she wasn't his only option. And right now he was her best choice. The Mediterranean PR manager, desperately trying to suppress the trending topic, has been eating and sleeping at the office for 3 full days. Yet it seems someone is pulling strings behind the scenes as the hype keeps growing higher and higher. Even various doubts and speculations have emerged. More frantic than him is Axel Jin's personal assistant. He looked at the wedding invitation in his hand and wanted to bang his head against the wall in frustration. On the day Axel Jin was preparing to return home after being unreachable for 4 days, the call finally went through. Assistant Lin's voice was frantic with urgency. Mr. Jin, your girlfriend is getting married. And you're not the groom. Axel Jin on the other end of the line frowned and scolded, Lin Wei-on. It's not April Fool's Day, I advise you not to joke about something like this. Assistant Lin stomped her foot in frustration. It's true. Miss Gu has made it official, the groom is your arch-nemesis, Fin Mu. They got their marriage certificate 2 days ago, right after the rumors about you and Joy-in abroad surfaced. The wedding is tomorrow morning. If you don't believe me, check Miss Gu's social media post yourself. Before Assistant Lin could say anything more, the call was abruptly ended. Axel Jin's fingers trembled as he swiped, but he couldn't find the chat app no matter how hard he tried. Joy-in beside him whispered an explanation, I accidentally deleted your WeChat that day. All Axel Jin could think about now was, see for yourself in Miss Gu's moments if you don't believe me. He quickly opened the App Store. Yet the download speed seemed to crawl at a snail's pace. The moment he finally logged in successfully, the notification sounds exploded in his phone. until he saw with his own eyes that glaring marriage certificate in Zoe's social media post. She, dressed in a white shirt, smiled at the corners of her lips and leaned close to Finmu. The caption reads, "To grow old with you in this lifetime." He frantically dialed Zoe's number but no one answered. A sharp pain shot through his chest, so intense that he clutched his chest and bent over. Joy-in exclaimed in shock as she rushed forward to support him, only to be violently pushed away by Axel Jean. In his fury he smashed everything within reach to pieces. The thought of Joy-in pestering him to turn off his phone sent his suppressed rage boiling over. He slapped Joy-in hard across the face. "Joy-in, you damn bitch." Joy-in grabbed his sleeve and sobbed, explaining, "Brother Axel, I really didn't mean to. I'm just pregnant and wanted you to spend some quality time with me and the baby before we get married. It's all my fault, please don't be mad at me, okay?" With that she fell to her knees, crying until she lost her voice. A flicker of regret passed through Axel Jin's heart as he struggled to suppress the violent urge to tear her apart. Instead, he gently carried Joy into the bed and softly comforted her. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken my anger out on you. Take good care of yourself during the pregnancy and I'll make it up to you and the child in the future. I must return to the country immediately. Zoe's marriage certificate is definitely fake, she must have done it to spite me." Joy-in insisted on taking the earliest flight back home with Axel Jean. But the moment the plane landed she regretted it. The airport perimeter was swarmed with reporters, who immediately surrounded them as soon as they appeared. A glint of calculation flashed in Joy-in's eyes as she darted behind Axel Jean like a startled fawn. But before they could take 2 steps, venomous curses could be heard mixed within the crowd. The next moment she was shoved hard to the ground, followed by a heavy weight on top of her as slaps rained down on her face like they were free. Her lower abdomen ached dully from the pressure, and a rush of warmth escaped her body, causing her to scream in terror. "Baby! Axel, save our baby!" Axel Jean, who had already shielded Joy-in, was slapped hard by an unknown woman, leaving several bloody scratches on his face. The woman's face flushed red with rage as she cursed furiously. "It's all because of you filthy men protecting her that she dares to seduce married men without restraint. My daughter had a miscarriage because of those provocative messages she sent. Even the lowest gutter rat can become a celebrity these days." With that she pulled out a thick stack of photocopied papers from her bag. "It's the evidence that Joy-in, at 16, seduced her adoptive father and was kicked out by her adoptive mother, later mingling with some wealthy people." With a flick of her hand she forcefully tossed the papers into the air. "Today I'll let everyone know exactly what kind of person you are." The camera flashes relentlessly targeted Joy-in. I looked at the live camera and smiled casually. Didn't she want to make a comeback? I set up the stage for her and even handed her the script. This time she should understand what's stolen must eventually be returned. By the time Axel Jean arrived in the southern city, Finmu and I had already recited our vows and exchanged rings. His eyes bloodshot with rage, he charged at Finmu and swung his fist. "You bastard, how dare you take advantage of someone in distress?" Finmu licked the corner of his mouth and struck back fiercely. "Not as much of a bastard as you. If you hadn't thrown those thumbtacks at the turn back then, you wouldn't have beaten me. If you can't cherish what you have, don't blame others for stealing from you." I stepped forward and pulled the 2 fighting men apart, then slapped Axel Jean hard across the face. Pulled Finmu behind me and said coldly, "Today's my big day. If you want to go crazy, get lost somewhere else." I turned to check Finmu's injury, but he caught my hand and gave it a light peck. "Darling, if you blow on it for your husband it won't hurt anymore." Axel Jean listened with heart-wrenching grief, his eyes bloodshot, gnashing his teeth as he spat. "Finmu, you're fucking asking for death." He rushed forward, raising his fists to strike. I lifted my hand and slapped him, leaving him stunned in place. "You know damn well what you've done. You knew exactly what I hate the most, yet you still did it. Axel Jean, you made me believe in love only to let me lose completely. All these days, I've been perfunctorily pretending everything's fine with you while preparing for a wedding with another man. I just wanted you to taste the bitterness of being deceived too." Axel Jin's face turned pale, drained of color as he tried to speak in his defense, only to find his throat painfully tight. His Zoe had truly married someone else. And it was he who had pushed her into it with his own hands. His heart felt as if it had been brutally hollowed out. A metallic taste surged up his throat, and Axel Jean spat out a mouthful of blood before collapsing straight backward. The farce finally came to an end. After seeing off the guests, I was faced with the person I least wanted to see in my life. That man, the one who shamelessly lived off others while cheating with his secretary, who repeatedly lied to my mother, secretly switched her medication, and was ultimately responsible for her death. He knelt before me, weeping and begging for forgiveness. Before, when he was about to send me to the old pervert's bed, he was so arrogant. He slapped himself hard, cursing the secretary who had cuckolded him. Not only did she secretly give him a sterilizing drug, but she also made him raise another man's son for over a decade. Now he sincerely admits his mistakes and wants to reclaim me as his only bloodline. He said he's getting old and hopes I can return to inherit his company. But his wishful thinking is about to be dashed. He's destined to have no descendants in this lifetime. Because I have a terminal illness and will soon die. I looked at the man before me, his hair now streaked with white, bitterly repenting, and slowly nodded as I took over everything in the company. Then before he could divorce his secretary, I set a trap. Forcing him and that woman to bear the burden of massive loan shark debts, fleeing and hiding, living a life of constant displacement. Years ago, the evidence of their conspiracy to commit intentional murder was also submitted to the court. I stood before my mother's gravestone, gently caressing the face etched with longing on its surface. Daughter has avenged you. I'll come to join you in a few days. A weight settled on my shoulders as Fin Mu draped a coat over me. Let's go back. The mountain wind is strong, you need to take care of your health. It'd be best if you could act alongside me for many more years. I've scheduled an appointment with a foreign expert to discuss conservative treatment options. I'm leaving tomorrow. Axel Jean wasn't wrong, the wedding photo was photoshopped by Fin Mu, who paid someone to do it. This wedding between us was a matter of mutual benefit. He used the evidence in his hands to avenge his mother, while I shielded him from an arranged marriage by his family. He might have done all this just to annoy Axel Jean. Yet I'm still very grateful to him. That's why I insisted on not getting legally married, only having a wedding ceremony. As someone who's about to die, I didn't want to burden him with becoming a divorcee. I never thought it would end up implicating him. On the way back, Joyan was driving a large truck, speeding straight toward Fin Mu's car. The car was pushed so hard that sparks flew from the friction along the way. In the last second before losing consciousness, I felt someone tightly shielding me beneath them. I feel guilty, but more than that, I feel relieved. There is nothing left in this world that makes me want to stay. All I ask is that Fin Mu remains unharmed. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but I heard faint voices talking nearby. She could have lived for 4 to 5 years. Unfortunately, she recently had a miscarriage due to stimulation and now this car accident. It's already a miracle she survived. If she wakes up, every day she lives might be her last. The hands holding mine tightened slightly as these words were spoken. That was the first time I heard such a cry. So heart-wrenching, so helpless and desperate. Turns out, those who betray true hearts really do swallow 10,000 needles. I felt my eyelids grow heavy, my body exhausted, and gradually drifted into unconsciousness. Every day after that, I occasionally regained some consciousness until one day that lazy voice sounded again. Zoe-gu, it's been a month already. Even I, your savior, have almost fully recovered. If you don't wake up soon, I'll be forced by my adoptive parents to divorce and marry that big-headed, wealthy woman with peculiar tastes. I instantly felt relieved in my heart. As long as he was okay, that was all that mattered. I struggled to open my eyes, and the moment my vision cleared, the sunlight refracted through the window made tears stream down my face. A figure blocked the sunlight, and a soft tissue pressed against my cheek, gently wiping away my fallen tears. Gradually, doctors and nurses began pouring in continuously. With sunken cheeks and bloodshot eyes, Axel Jean was stopped outside the door by bodyguards. He called my name with intense emotion. Zoe, I just found out Grandpa passed away. If I had known it was you calling that day, I would never have hung up. I caused the death of our child. I deserve to die. He slapped himself violently until blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. Zoe, look at me please. I'll do anything you want as long as you forgive me. He wanted to rush in to see properly the girl he had once cherished above all else. Yet no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free from the bodyguard's grip. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I caught a glimpse of Axel Jean hiding in the corner, dejected and forlorn. I heard he sold the company and donated a temple in my name, praying for my long life. Fin Mu snorted coldly, blocking the view as his warm palm enveloped my hand. He shielded my head as I got into the car. After that, I liquidated all my assets as quickly as possible and distributed the proceeds to orphanages and impoverished mountain regions. The largest portion was donated to the orphanage my mother often took me to as a child, a place filled with many beautiful memories of her and me. Every day I would go back and forth there to volunteer. Just like my mother did when I was a child, I would style their hair in various ways and coax them into taking baths and changing into fresh clothes. Occasionally I would stay overnight, snuggling with them to watch cartoons or telling them fairy tales. When they saw the pizza in the cartoons and their faces lit up with longing, I organized a mutual aid activity. Each reward is the delicious food they desire. Occasionally I too feel a profound sense of helplessness. When some children ask me why their parents don't want them. When those infants in swaddling clothes cry incessantly, as if aware they've been abandoned. I don't know how to comfort them. Perhaps they will understand when they grow up. They only have one set of parents in their lifetime. Yet their parents can have many children. They were not their parents' only ones, so they could be beaten, abandoned, left to die, or left to live as they pleased. Later they liked to gather around me and affectionately call me, Mommy Goo. This was after receiving my response. Each one of them was as happy as a chirping little lark. Before long I had a caregiver by my side, the same young girl who had taken care of me in the hospital before. My health is so poor that I already need someone to take care of me by my side. Watching the heartwarming scenes at the orphanage, she sometimes secretly wipes away tears. Sometimes she would curse Axel, Jean and Joy and under her breath. Other times she would make me laugh. She couldn't help but exaggerate in her narration. Do you know how handsome President Mu is? He grabbed that scumbag Jean by the collar and bam, knocked him out with one punch. President Mu was so angry he nearly jumped 2 feet in the air, shouting, I haven't even finished beating you up and you're already out cold? I thought to myself, after days without food or water, of course he'd pass out. As if realizing she'd said something she shouldn't have, her voice abruptly cut off. I smiled and took her hand. At that time Axel, Jean was your employer. You even took pleasure in your employer's misfortune. The little girl scratched her head sheepishly. The footprint on his face was from me. I originally meant to kick him in the chest, but I missed and hit his face instead. I burst out laughing. Later on, Fin Mu appeared by my side, accompanying me as I said goodbye to the children and insisting that I undergo treatment. I looked into their tearful, reluctant eyes, feeling a pang of sorrow in my heart. Little Cloud threw herself into my arms, clinging tightly and refusing to let go. Auntie Goo, are you leaving us too? You promised to celebrate Children's Day with us and watch us grow up together. I don't want you to go. Her chest heaved with sobs and soon more children's cries followed. Only then did I realize I was wrong. I shouldn't have given them hope only to make them sad and disappointed. Especially little Cloud, I had shown the most care for this poor troubled girl. It was supposed to be a farewell, but it turned into a scene where both adults and children couldn't stop crying. The staff in the courtyard hurriedly tried to comfort them. Fin Mu held the boy beside him in his arms, gently wiping the tears from his cheeks and promised, as long as you all behave and stop crying on Children's Day, I'll bring your Mommy Goo to watch your performance. You care the most about Mom Goo, surely you wouldn't want her to keep crying with you. Gradually the sobbing turned into quiet sniffles. Those sorrowful eyes once again filled with hope. I looked gratefully at Fin Mu. The days that followed showed very poor results from the treatment. On Children's Day, I insisted on receiving 2 extra tubes of nutrient injections. Fin Mu pushed me in the wheelchair. Fearing the children might cry again, I had instructed the director in advance to tell them I had sprained my foot. At the end of life I saw the most beautiful flowers in the world. They were abandoned in a corner, yet bloomed in my eyes. My eyes weakly and slowly closed. I seemed to see my mother before her passing. The guilt in her eyes was as thick as morning mist that wouldn't disperse. She said, Sweetheart, don't cry. Promise Mommy you'll live well. Mommy wants you to grow up happy and joyful. At this moment, these words I also dedicate to those children bound by fate. I sincerely hope that they may grow up safely, happy and joyful. Alas, I can no longer see them like larks fluttering towards me. Fin Mu put a finger to his lips, making a shushing gesture at them. He whispered to them, Auntie Gu is tired. Be good and don't wake her up. He turned and called his assistant over to distribute gifts to each child. Amid the children's delighted giggles, he pushed the wheelchair and turned to leave. Tears fell upon my gradually chilling body. 1 drop, 2 drops in an unending stream. Zoe, do you know? Once I was also an orphan in this orphanage. You gave me candy saying I was as pure as a blank sheet of paper. You said I was the most beautiful person you'd ever seen. But you've forgotten all of it. Only I remember now. The wind scattered his murmurs but could not blow away his tears. He carried Zoe's body into the car, holding her tightly in his arms. Ah! A heart-wrenching roar of grief echoed through heaven and earth. It drowned out the small figure chasing desperately behind the car. The tiny figure ran while crying. Auntie Gu. Please don't abandon me. I'll be good and listen to you. I'll be your most beloved little cloud. Mom. Look at me, I'm your little cloud. She ran with all her might, certain that her beloved Mama Gu would see her. At the very moment the car turned and disappeared from sight, she fell hard to the ground. Her lips were scraped and bleeding, yet she still stretched out her little hand forward. Until everything around her returned to silence. Only the disconnected teardrops of little Cloud fell to the ground, drip, drip, stirring up dust. Mom, you don't want little Cloud either, do you? Axel Jean sped the car to its limit. After seeing the cold, lifeless me, he swallowed hard, forcing back the hot surge rising in his throat. Fin Mu's fist, fueled by rage, struck Axel Jean with brutal force. Axel Jean seemed as if his soul had been drained, his crimson eyes shedding large, rolling tears. Even with his eyes swollen from the beating, blood spilling from his mouth and fingernails torn off, none of it compared to the agony in his heart from losing Zoe. He knelt before the coffin, struggling to keep one eye open, and repeatedly banged his head heavily against the ground. He kept banging his forehead until it was a bloody mess, continuing until he lost consciousness. 3 days later, a coffin appeared beside Zoe Gu. Fin Mu passed away peacefully, a faint smile on his lips. He never told Zoe that the marriage certificate was real. She had promised to be his wife. How could he ever let her go so easily? Before his death, he entrusted the children from the orphanage to Axel Jean. Tell him this is Zoe's final wish. Axel Jean, who intended to let Joy and bleed to death before ending his own life, threw the despised Joy and onto the smuggling ship in disgust. He is destined to live a life of guilt. Joy-in, like a broken bellows, made hoarse, broken sounds with his severed tongue. Her originally fair and smooth fingers were now bent at an eerie angle. With terror in her eyes, she looked at the disheveled men closing in on her with lecherous grins, tears falling in despair. The end. Axel Jean's side story. Axel Jean volunteered at the orphanage and mustered the courage to return to the home that no longer carried Zoe's presence. He clutched a phone in his hand identical to the one he had used for the past 10 years. With trembling hands he inserted the SIM card that symbolized a lifetime commitment into the slot. The phone vibrated continuously, revealing a number once so familiar it was etched into his bones. He opened the text message, read Zoe's self-narration, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. The first year I met Axel Jean. To make me agree to be his girlfriend, he risked his life to win that race. That year the love in his eyes nearly overwhelmed me. The second year of dating Axel Jean. During a trip we were caught in an avalanche and trapped together. When we were rescued his body was stiff, he had wrapped all the warm winter clothes around me who was unconscious. The third year of our relationship. Axel Jean learned to cook, his hands burned red, yet he smiled with satisfaction. That year his nutritious meals slowly helped me gain a little weight. The fourth year. He knew I wanted to enshrine guanine for my mother, so he secretly stayed up late in the study for many nights, embroidering a portrait of guanine for me. The fifth year. The company was on track and he declined all sorts of unnecessary social engagements, never giving me any cause for concern. That year he gave me countless gifts. The sixth year. The company faced a crisis and I helped him through it. He transferred half of the shares to my name, saying he had also saved a generous dowry for me and would give me everything I desired. The seventh year. A sudden car accident occurred and he shielded me with his body. When the ambulance arrived he pleaded in a daze, "Save her first. Without her I won't live either." The eighth year. He proposed to me and I turned him down. I told him that if he could love me as devotedly for 10 years as he did at the beginning, I would nod in agreement. He wasn't angry, instead he became even more doting on me. The 9th year. Axel Jean fell into a trap at the banquet. He fiercely pushed away the seductive beauty clinging to him, cut his palm so deeply the bone was visible, and stubbornly held on until the moment he saw me. The 10th year. On our 10th anniversary of love he got drunk, his heart and eyes filled with nothing but me. He said, "Zoe, I'll never let you lose in this lifetime. I've made a will, if I die all my assets will go to you, ensuring you a worry-free life." In the 11th year he fell in love with a young and delicate girl, just as he had loved me back then, giving her everything she desired, even willing to risk his life for her. So, I've decided to marry someone else. Let's part on good terms and never meet again. A decade of devotion ends. Axel Jean began to pursue Zoe obsessively. I had to step in and cause trouble. But Zoe didn't recognize me. Axel Jean got annoyed by the disturbance. Propose a race to decide the winner, with the loser stepping aside. I lost that race. Then I watched helplessly as they were happy together for 10 years. For 10 years I accompanied Zoe's cat through its entire life. For 10 years, I have been leveraging my connections to uncover the truth behind Aunt Moo's death. Meanwhile, I watched Zoe gradually become more cheerful and happy. Yet, whenever I thought of Axel Jean's smug demeanor, I couldn't resist making things difficult for him. During this time, I also worked to undermine the business of Zoe's father. While he kept disturbing the happiness Zoe had just gained, I went to his hometown and told the truth to his upright, revolutionary grandfather. When he tried to embezzle the trust fund Aunt Moo left for Zoe, I used some means to deliver it into Zoe's hands. After Zoe chose to withdraw the fund to help Axel Jean's company through the crisis, I secretly gave Axel Jean a helping hand behind the scenes. In the 7th year with Axel Jean, she became pregnant but quietly lost the baby. I watched as she hid under the hospital blanket, silently crying. My heart aches and I really want to hug her. Later she accepted Axel Jean's marriage proposal. I sincerely wish that in this lifetime, it's enough for me to see her happy forever. I kept a close eye on Axel Jean until I realized he had lost his mind. After discovering that Zoe knew the truth, I edited the conditions and sent her a marriage proposal. She agreed. That night, it seemed as if the entire sky was lit up with stars. The next day I held her blood-soaked body in my arms and prayed to the heavens. I would give my life to ensure her peace and health in the years to come. Yet heaven turned a deaf ear. She was diagnosed with a miscarriage and a terminal illness. At that moment I could have killed that bastard Axel Jean. While she was sound asleep I took the car keys. Venting my frustration I returned home and turned the place into a wreck. But when I think about it, 4 or 5 years of being able to accompany her was enough. When I proposed getting our marriage license she politely declined. She said she had a terminal illness and didn't have long to live. She said she didn't want to hold me back and asked me to find someone to Photoshop a wedding photo. At that moment my world turned dark and bleak. I restrained my emotions, casually agreed to her request and in the end deceived her. I had my dream wedding with her, exchanged vows and swapped rings. From that moment on she became my wife through sickness and health, for better or worse. I looked at Axel Jean's face full of regret, but his real remorse was yet to come. Zoe and I still have 5 years together, and during this time I'll block him from appearing in our lives at all. I never imagined Joy and could be so utterly depraved. I wish I could tear her limb from limb. I sent people to block Joy-in, who was hiding everywhere, and personally cut out her tongue and broke her fingers. Then I leaked Joy-Ann's hiding place to Axel Jean. The evil he has wrought he must reap. I began using inhuman methods to discipline my unrelated younger brother. I told my adoptive parents about my plans. Mother fainted from crying several times and father also became angry. In front of Zoe, I portrayed them as the cruel parents forcing me into an arranged marriage. My adoptive parents played their roles perfectly in this act. But in reality they were the second ray of light in my life. I kowtowed to them 3 times with deep reverence. The debts of this life can only be repaid in the next. When Zoe left there was a relieved smile on her lips. Yet my heart was shattered with unbearable pain. Once again she abandoned me. I adopted little Yun Duo from the orphanage, along with a quiet and well-behaved boy. I named them Moon Yanan and Moon Yensheng. I arranged everything for them, a house, schools, a butler, maids, and entrusted the money to their adoptive parents for safekeeping. Then in Zoe's name I entrusted the orphanage to Axel Jean. The guilty do not deserve easy redemption. He wanted to join Zoe underground to atone for his sins. I won't allow it. Besides, a love between three is too crowded. Zoe only needs me. All has been settled. I swallowed the sleeping pills I had prepared in advance. Placed the photo with Zoe and Aunt Moo against my heart. That year I tearfully retrieved this photo from the trash bin. Wiped it clean, pressed it flat. They don't want me. Then I'll take them instead. Zoe will never know in this lifetime that I loved her. Until the end of my life. Still love you.